I can't hear a thing. Sorry, guys. I'll be back.
All right, we're going to try this again. Can anyone hear me now? Can I see anyone? Can anyone hear me? Yes, no, in chat, perhaps. All good, Randy? Yes? Am I seeing other yeses? We can finally hear what I'm doing? All righty. Becky, I believe that we finally have functional audio.
I hope so.
All right, we're going to start over in 3, 2, 1.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for sticking with us through our technical issues. As you can see, I'm not in my current location. I've had bad internet for the majority of the afternoon at my house, so I appreciate you sticking with us while we sort out the technical difficulties. But welcome to the Big West Mafia Show, part of the College Football Mafia Network. I am Sergeant Pickles, and with me, is my fantastic host, Becky Go Huskies. How we doing, Becky?
I'm good. As everybody can tell, I'm on a phone because I couldn't get it to work. So
it has been one of those days indeed, not only for us, but in the college football world, it seems. I know the majority of fans are enthralled with March Madness. There's been a lot of fun games going on. I am admittedly not the biggest basketball fan, but I think it definitely news for us that both kicking it off, Washington State and Washington have basketball-related head coaching news. Would you like to let chat know about that?
Yes. So Washington hired Sprinkle from Utah State today after they were eliminated yesterday by Purdue. And then Wazoo's head coach has left Wazoo and is now the head coach at Stanford. So a lot of moving parts there, and the biggest thing to take away is everybody's kind of, it's a lot of coaching hires today. That's the biggest takeaway. Like That's just two. I think the JMU head coach is now the head coach at Vanderbilt. Missouri State got a coach today. A lot going on today. So
yeah, it's definitely been the normal carousel. And before I kind of dive into it more, I would be remiss to not say hello to some of our friends in chat. Buckshot Kid in here as always. Didn't know Benny Beaver was cross-eyed, referencing our thumbnail on there. The Benny the Beaver is one of the more terrifying mascot heads in person if you've ever seen it. Scott K in Florida, hello. Another Joaquin Morales saying good evening at TCFM. Smash that like button, appreciate that. Nathan Campbell saying hello to us, punctual as always.
hello.
Daniel Gygax, Jan Hulk from Slovenia. I mean, man, we sure as heck weren't on time, but at the wee hours of the morning, Jan Hulk is punctual. So I appreciate that, Jan. Got Congo, another member. Scott Schrader, who is a Husker fan in Texas. I believe you have some interesting thoughts you could maybe share with us, Scott, about your new athletic director and what you make of the job he did at Washington and beforehand. Lionite Ted, hello for joining us. Randy Taylor. As always, the Golden Gopher, Tony Lashin. Yeah, I wasn't saying much there for a minute. We had zero audio, but as I said, I appreciate you sticking with us. Our good friend Moen. We're having some audio issues, but Moen, thank you so much for still helping us out. If you don't know, he generates our thumbnails for our show every week, and he's on the mend from some pretty intense surgery, but it sounds like all went pretty well. So we hope that he is good enough to join us back on camera and for the fantastic Moen After Dark show on Sundays coming up soon. Don in Kansas, hello, hello. And there he is, the infamous Shonsky. How's everyone doing tonight? We're doing much better now. We got everything sorted out, and we're rolling here. And Expedition Greg, hello again. But yeah, appreciate everyone being here getting through our technical difficulties. And yeah, Scott Schrader, if you could maybe throw your thoughts into chat, because in combination with the Washington basketball hire, it was done without an athletic director, because Troy Dannon, who was hired 5 or 6 months ago, Becky, is now leaving for I wouldn't say greener pastures, but more cornfield pastures of Nebraska.
Yeah. So what I found out is the hiring was essentially done before Dannon left. So he wasn't going to step down. We basically just had to wait for Utah State to be eliminated from the postseason, and then we would actually be able to officially make it official. So apparently it was done in the last 2 weeks. So Dannon, this is like the one last thing that Dannon did before he left. So but it was just pretty much just as soon as it was done, contract is already ready to go. And they just needed the interim athletic director just needed to finish up a couple of things, and then that was it. So pretty chill day.
Yeah, and I had never heard of the guy. Like I said, not the biggest hoops fan, but I'm learning here. And as you can see, we already have even a breakdown of his contract, and it was very clear. It was he was the guy that Dannon was even targeting. There were some other candidates, I'm sure, but signed a 6-year contract, so that actually shows it's a pretty strong commitment based on the monetary value, $3 million a year. I haven't had a chance to rank it against the other Big Ten coaches, but I know that the buyout starts pretty significantly. Oh, there's myself talking in the background. And also Dave Softy Mahler, who's a sports writer here in Seattle, has said he wanted the, coveted for the UW job for a while. His father played on the Washington Huskies football team in the 1960s. And in the era of, no loyalty and, you don't really have connections to a school, it's just best man for the job. It is nice to see an actual connection. He was born in Pullman. So it's good to see someone that actually has connections to the school itself.
Yeah, his sister apparently still lives in the Seattle area. So she's been going to UW games for a while. And then they also watched the UW national championship together, he and his dad. So yeah. I think his dad played in the late 60s, early 70s. So right before Don James, which is kind of cool to hear. Right. He was a part of that group that think it was the coach that they all kind of like rebelled against. So little Husky history. One of the coaches, just at the end of it, people didn't like, and it was either in the mid or late 60s. So he was either right before, during, or after all of that occurred. So the players basically refused to play for a coach and forced him out. So
yeah, it's like I said, I mean, this is the era where loyalty means nothing. You know, it's the bottom dollar, and you know, we can get ourselves all hyped up and say, oh, he's a lifetime Husky and this and that. Like, I've accepted the fact it's a business, and he may leave for a better job at some point, and that's fine. But to at least have some genuine love for the university and a real connection to it, I think that speaks volumes. And kind of as you said, the other flip side of that is Washington State Kyle Smith, who obviously they just made the NCAA tournament, taking the job at Stanford, which that was pretty surprising to me because many people have said that it's sort of a lateral move of sorts, and you're going from, you know, the PAC-2 or whatever it's going to become, and you had the resources to get a tournament team, and now you're going to Stanford. And Stanford has as much money as they want to possibly throw at sports, but sports are never a priority. So what do you make of him deciding that Stanford was a better opportunity?
Well, we should erase the notion that sports are not a priority at Stanford. They absolutely are. Stanford spends money on coaches. I think Shaw was the highest paid coach in the Pac-12 at one point. Like, he made more than the USC head coach. He was making more than Nick Saban. So this notion that Stanford doesn't care about sports, we probably should kill that because they absolutely do. It's just like I've said in the past, their fans don't live in Palo Alto, which if you guys have ever been to Palo Alto, only people who live there are millionaires and billionaires. But I don't think this is a lateral move. And I don't want to be like, I got to be a little blunt because we have to be, but you're joining the West Coast Conference for basketball. So the ACC is still a great basketball conference. So I think it's easier to recruit telling kids, oh, instead of, hey, you'll play Gonzaga because that's the only great team you'll play. And then you'll get a good St. Mary's team, and that's it. It's easier to tell kids, hey, come here, you're going to play against great schools. Duke, North Carolina. You know, you're going to play Louisville whenever they get back on track. You know, you're going to go to places like Miami and Boston College, and Virginia is a great school now for hoops. So it's a little easier to do it. Plus, Stanford has always been able to get 4- and 5-star athletes to play basketball there. And I mean, not a lot of people realize that, but Stanford's always been really decent at basketball at times. So,
yeah,
and downright great other times. So,
yeah,
you can do it. You just, you know, I think he just viewed, and I view the same way. I think he viewed the WCC as more of a lateral move than Stanford. I think he viewed this as more of an upward move, and that's no offense to Washington State or Oregon State, but I mean, we're Huskies. Our basketball program isn't exactly some powerhouse.
No, by no means.
Like, I'm like, you know, we could lose our coach to anybody. Like, that's how it works.
Yeah, ironically, if Indiana or Iowa or Illinois, you know, the Big Ten powers come calling, they could steal a coach interconference, and it wouldn't be that surprising.
Yeah, wouldn't shock me at all if like our coach suddenly was like trying to be poached by, you know, like Purdue. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like, they're not a blue blood, but they are a step above. So I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, and got a few more people arriving, and the infamous Ryan Willie, the Evil Badger, is here. Him and our good friend Tony do the classic Big Ten battle in chat here, but we appreciate having them both. And to any of our subscribers and members, we will try and get through as many chat comments as we can as we go along. But I promise you, as you do what our good friend Rock and Rant here, if you put a super chat on screen, we will absolutely read it, as long as it does not violate YouTube terms of service. We will make fun of our own teams. We will talk trash to other fan bases. Just keep it within the lines, and we will read any super chat.
That's right.
Hello, Rock and Rant. My UCLA wife wants your POV on their new football staff. I apologize for my ignorance, but I'm not sure what POV
Point of view.
Point of view. Okay.
No, I think they got a great staff. I like the continuity. He kept all of the defensive guys together. Yeah. And then he hired Eric Bieniemy as the new offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So, and then I believe he even kept Rick Neuheisel's son on staff, or hired him. So little like reach into the past. Rick Neuheisel, of course, played quarterback at UCLA and was a head coach at one time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the staff. I like the idea of it. I'm not 100% certain on it, because the last time we saw Eric Bieniemy as a college coach, it was Colorado, and that was right after they joined the Pac-12. And you guys can go back and revisit what that record was. It was bad. They were horrible. So, I mean, We'll see. Time will tell. But I like what they did on defense. They just kept what they had after the defensive coordinator left for USC. And then, Chip Kelly hired his replacement, and they just kept all those guys. I like it. Deshaun Foster doing all the right things there. That's why we haven't seen a mass exodus, I think, personally. So.
Yeah, I mean, losing your DC to your crosstown rival is always going to hurt, and you have guys like Leatu Latu, who outstanding defensive player, is going to go to the draft, was a Husky at one point, unfortunately. But UCLA, we know, they've always recruited at a level that they can compete anytime they want. Yes, there may be that step below their, USC. They don't necessarily compete for those 5 stars across town, but they always end up in the top 25 recruiting rankings, except for this last year, which was a huge knock against Kelly. And I do think the new staff is composed to, it'll be maybe a slow build over the first few years, but I've always been so curious when their upper campus stops trying to meddle so much with the team. That's been a notorious thing about UCLA for years. They have all the resources and money in the world. They recruit really well. Chip Kelly's a big name hire, whether or not you have, strong opinions about him. He's a big name hire. He's accomplished a lot. And there's no reason why you can't put it all together at a school like that. But they've had notoriously meddlesome upper campus. So they need to do a little bit of soul searching and just let the I agree. It's a pretty solid staff. Let them do their thing. Give them a few years, and I think you'll actually see some good results, even in a very, very difficult Big Ten.
Yeah, there's talent. There's talent on that team. Let's just see we got to see what they can do. They got to figure out the quarterback position. First and foremost, they have 2 guys who are fully capable of playing. I think Schlee should be the one that's starting, because he was really good at Kent State.
Yep.
Thought he should have been the starter last year, even over Dante Moore. But give him a little bit of time. Eric Bieniemy is gonna run an offense. If you guys want to see it, it's probably the same one the Commanders ran in the NFL last year. So probably really similar to that. But like I said, time will tell on them.
Yeah, our friend Rory McNamara said go Huskies before. Go Huskies to you, Rory. UCLA DC, Ikaika Malloy is a great coach. I kind of wanted Ikaika Malloy to come back under Jed Fish's staff, and I understand why he wasn't. They don't necessarily have a personal connection, but he's well regarded up here in Seattle, and I think he'll do pretty good things there at UCLA.
Yeah, I wanted the same thing. I was hoping he would come back, but I get why he didn't. That would be a lateral move. We'll just be honest. Go from coordinator to coordinator within the conference. It's more of a lateral move than anything. Apparently going from head coach to offensive coordinator at The Ohio State University is this upgrade, but I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know how much Ikaika is interested in being a head coach at some point. He seems to really enjoy that coordinator and hands-on coaching role. You know what I mean? Once you're a head coach in this era, you're way more hands-off. So I could see him maybe being a DC at a top-end program at some point, but he seems to be pretty content to stick at UCLA. Scott Schrader, our Husker fan, excited to see the mighty Bruins come to Lincoln first week in November. Going to be awesome. I expect a Husker win. It's a very traditional matchup. I'll give you that. I mean, you could tell me that game was from 1947, UCLA playing at Nebraska, and I believe you. It's one of those very traditional things. So even though the teams on the field may be of questionable quality in UCLA's case, it is kind of cool to see these traditional matchups, or even big time rivalries from the past, Rose Bowl type rivalries, now as conference games.
Yeah, just like UCLA, Nebraska's got to figure out their quarterback stuff, because they were terrible at it last year. So
yeah, absolutely. And I saw this sort of in line. I said realignment inevitably. I think this is University of Texas Rio Grande Valley is leaving the WAC for the Southland. Doubt they're moving to SBS, but they keep losing members. It's kind of crazy that realignment is down like every level, every tier, because you got to think, as soon as like Sam Houston, they used to be FCS and now they're G5, someone's got to take their place. So I don't know where it really stops. I don't know if it does.
Honestly, if you go back through those low, like the G5, not even the G5, so you go through the FCS and then even the mid majors, if everybody watches it, every year there's high turnover. Like they are constantly moving around. And I think, Rio Grande Valley joining the Southland, I think that's more for monetary. Again, it's usually this reason. It's for money. I think they'll save more money, being that most of the conference now is in their geographical area, because prior to that, they would have games that, in basketball, they'd be playing at Seattle University. So it gets a little bit away from it. And, a school like Seattle University is private, so they can have all the money that they want. So I get it. But yeah, if you go back through every year, I think there's another team leaving the Northeast Conference or joining it or something like that. Every year there's multiple teams that do this. So no shock.
Yeah. And you and I both, just caught my eyes. We're sitting in here, we're talking about chat and going to the Rose Bowl and UCLA. I know coach of the illustrious Tony Walashin led Golden Gophers, PJ Fleck, was commenting on the excitement he shares about the upcoming infamous flyover commercial. And Becky, I know you and I have speculated before, copyright Big Ten Media. We do not own or use this video. This is not ours, to people trying to take it down. But I'm curious, we've speculated about what each new school will have for the flyover video, but do you share the same excitement as Coach Fleck?
Yeah, no, this is the one thing I've been looking forward to. Gosh, the commercial is awesome. I love that commercial. No, I think it's going to be fun. I'm very curious as to what all goes on there, especially because, the Rose Bowl, that's UCLA's home stadium. So, and it's not technically used by the conference anymore outside of that, because there's no more Rose Bowl, Pac-12, Big Ten matchup. But I was talking to somebody, I was like, I don't know what Oregon's going to have.
Yeah, I commented under Big Ten Ted's post here. I commented saying, I expect the Seattle, the Space Needle, the Fish Tosh, the sailgating up to the stadium. I hope they include a few cool things. Like, I was thinking either the Suzalo Library or the cherry blossoms on campus. If you've never been to UW campus, there's some really cool architecture and famous buildings there, and the library is one of them. It's the one that they actually, when they had College Game Day here last season, it was the backdrop for that set. So I'm excited to see some of the Easter eggs. And there's a really cool, I forget the guy's channel. I wish I could plug it here, but there's a really cool YouTube video of a guy spending 20 minutes, and he breaks down each piece of that commercial. And it's really, really fascinating. I learned a lot about, Big Ten history and some of the little details in it. But yeah, Oregon, I think the only thing they could really put in there, because if you've never been to Eugene, which I suspect a lot of chat hasn't, there's not a lot going on there outside of the stadium. It's as big a farm town as anything. You just get that Oregon brand that makes it seem like it's in the big city. You could put Mount Hood. I feel like you got to put the Nike logo, and maybe Phil Knight would agree to let him use it for free. He probably would, I'm sure. The only other one I could think of was the Duck doing push-ups and their track and field stadium because it hosts the Olympic trials all the time. It's actually a really, really cool track and field facility.
Yeah, I think it'll just end up being Autzen, and then maybe something like a little bit more of their campus, because it is a really gorgeous campus. If anybody has time to go there,
it is.
The walk to Autzen across the river is a lot of fun to do. So it would just be really. I'm just not certain 100% what they're going to do. I don't know if they do Mount Hood, but
it's semi nearby.
Yeah.
From an overview of the state of Oregon, it's not that far away from Eugene.
Yeah, that's true.
Tony Blashin,
or it will too.
Tony's thinking the Hollywood sign will make an appearance, because right now it's just a quick flyover. You get the Rose Bowl, and I agree. I mean, UCLA and USC on the map are going to have to be right next to each other. So USC's got a lot of cool details. Our friend Rock and Rant, your wife's going to have to give us some suggestions for what UCLA is, because outside of the Rose Bowl, I don't necessarily know anything particular and notable from Westwood.
They'll probably have Poly Pavilion. I would bet that they'll just do Los Angeles, both schools, and they'll just pop up. Like, look at Rutgers. Rutgers just popped up like New York City and a few other things. They'll just pop up some of the skyline stuff. That's why I think it'll probably end up being the Hollywood sign. The real question I have is, which school is going to start? Is it going to start in Seattle, or is it going to start in LA and then make its way east?
It seemed like the prevailing idea was either it would start at Rutgers and travel and finish, and I think the only way it's going to go, you're going to go to Nebraska and hook north to Seattle and then come down the coast. So you either start at Rutgers and end in Los Angeles, or you do the reverse journey and you start with the new schools. A lot of people seem to think that because you're promoting the new West Coast schools, you'll finish off with them. But that overview shot's going to be really weird, because the majority of the schools are way in the distance. And if you're interested, I actually, the header of the Big West Mafia Twitter page is a modified picture from the very end of the commercial. So I tried to cook that up myself a while ago.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot, we already had that one. Sorry, Scott Schrader saying Huskers going to the Coliseum on the 16th in Huntington Beach. Yeah, that's the big draw. Is as soon as you're playing a game in LA, you're going to get all sorts of Big Ten fans out there.
Oh yeah, no, I mean Pac-12. Even when they were playing in the Pac-12, like, okay, you know what? I'm going to get out of this stupid cold and head down there. So
yeah, Illini head for Oregon Nike headquarters. Is the headquarters?
Portland.
Is it in Portland or Beaverton? I think
it's in Beaverton, which is a suburb of Portland. So
it's in a Portland suburb, and ironically, there are probably more Oregon State Beaver fans in Portland than Oregon fans.
There's probably more Husky fans in Portland than Duck fans. Like, let's just be honest. Like,
when they say Oregon is a national brand, that's because that's where all of their fans are.
Yeah, they don't have any fans really. I mean, they have fans in Oregon, but the vast majority don't live in the state of Oregon. So.
Indeed. And I appreciate Illini Ted, Scott Schrader, all of our other members kind of lighting it up in chat here. We will read all super chats, but we attempt to get through as many member comments and everything as we go along during the show. And, oh goodness, I forgot to do this earlier because we had a bit of a rough start. If you'd like to follow any of us and all of our other excellent shows, the ticker will go across the bottom for their times. And our good friend Moen After Dark, his show may be on hiatus for a little while as he's recovering, but we're hopeful he gets back to it soon and we get to enjoy his world famous, sometimes spicy Moen After Dark chats on a Sunday. We'd also like to promote our friend Wild Ute is continuing his college football analysis series where he breaks down how good of a fit certain programs are for conferences and the future of realignment. The one he just dropped that was really exciting to myself is Washington State and Oregon State to the Big 12. And no spoilers, but I was a little bit surprised, both good and bad, in that video.
Yeah.
It's currently a members exclusive. It will come out to the public later on, but if you want to become a member and get early access to that content, he's going to continue the series. I know he's working on Pitt, Louisville, Virginia Tech, and I forget the last one. There were 4 more at a minimum going to the Big 12, and those will be coming out soon. But if you'd like to become a member, here is how you can do so.
Want to become a member of the College Football Mafia family? Simply select the Join button from our homepage. There are several options with their own unique benefits to choose from. You can also set yourself to auto-accept gifted membership by selecting the gift settings options as shown.
Yep, we absolutely appreciate that. And the Godfather has graced us with his presence. I just saw him pop into chat here. That was our good friend Greg Flugar from Peek Around the Corner. Any word on edge rusher Zach Durfee doing in camp for Washington? Becky, that is a you question. You are our camp extraordinaire.
You know what? We're gonna find out soon. They just kind of started. So they're like, it's like every couple of days or every other day kind of like thing until the spring game, which I believe is now like late April. So they just got going. But he's been working with the ones. So like he probably, had he been able to play last year, which is like the biggest joke of it all. For those who don't know, Zach Durfee transferred from Sioux Falls to the University of Washington. And he's technically classified as a two-time transfer, but he only transferred once as an athlete. They counted, and this is where it gets stupid, they counted his transferring as a student from North Dakota State, where, again, not on a team, not an athlete, just a regular plain Jane student. They counted that as a transfer when he left that school to go to Sioux Falls and walked onto the football team. They counted that.
So he went to 3 separate colleges, but only played on 2 teams, Sioux Falls and then at UW. Yep, that's Scott Schrader. That's Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I see it there in chat, which is Kalen DeBoer's one of his previous coaching stops, if I'm not mistaken. That was the school he started out at. And Durfee was, all his teammates raved about him, about how athletic he was. He was playing against the ones in practice, and he was beating. Keep in mind, we have 2 offensive tackles who are in the NFL draft, went to the combine, and looked to be taken in the NFL draft, and he was performing well by all accounts against 2 NFL caliber tackles.
He frustrated the hell out of that award-winning offensive line. Yes. Every single member. He's got a high motor guy. He's athletic. He's strong. He gets around the edge rather quickly. But yeah, he would have been. So both of our starting defensive ends, Trice and ZTF, are really good. They're both going to get drafted. But yeah, Durfee is ridiculous and absolutely just abused everybody on that line.
As Greg says here, his tape is ridiculous. I agree there. I heard that it was the only thing that was limiting him at his previous school and why he was able to transfer to a top-end program like Washington is he just needed more technique work. And I believe Fish has the staff that can do that. I really do. And, it's going to be tough. It's a transition year for the Huskies, but that doesn't mean individual players can't excel and have fantastic seasons. And Durfee's going to be given every opportunity to start. The NCAA rule against transfers, it was stupid because they approved other guys 2-time transfers. He, like you said, he was just a regular student and then transferred, but they counted it. And shortly after, he became eligible, which was during the national championship game, was I believe the first game he was eligible for. Then they changed the rule that, transfers don't matter after he had sat out the whole season. So he was completely screwed. I hope he gets that year of eligibility back. But, I can't wait to see how it shakes out in this upcoming season.
He does get to keep that year because he sat. So it does go as a red shirt. But it's just such a crappy situation that as a player, as a student, it counted as a transfer. I'm like, the NCAA's rules are completely out of touch with reality.
Yeah, NCAA against NCAA.
Yeah.
Very probably
accurate.
The best way I can describe it, Ted. Absolutely.
Makes me want to cry. It's so accurate.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And sorry, I've completely lost my train of thought. We have Tony and others talking about the Big Ten hockey. I know we keep getting bullied by Tony about whether Washington's going to add a Big Ten hockey team or not. I would love to see it.
So
we'll see.
Well, before Dannon left, he was asked about that. So what a lot of people don't realize is the University of Washington is 55% female. So in order to add a men's sport, they have to add a corresponding women's sport because the student body is more female than male. So Title IX requires them to add a women's sport. So in order to do hockey, we would have to add both or choose another sport that it could do it. And the biggest issue with women's hockey is, there's not a lot of schools that do it. So the women's hockey team would have to be out, they would never be out west. There's no schools out west that have it. So
Arizona State is the only one that I know of. But I think Arizona State and Denver are the closest.
Yeah, it's a lot of travel, and it wouldn't really, in the long run for women's hockey, it wouldn't be worth it. Men's hockey, fine. And then same thing with wrestling. Like, we would have to add another women's sport. So we're kind of back in that,
we've spoken about it before that all 4 of the incoming schools, to my knowledge, have a men's club hockey team.
Yes.
And I know that I believe USC, Washington, and Oregon, I'm not sure about UCLA, also have women's club. So they're still club-supported sports, and the school fundraises for them. I understand it's not the same as full scholarship and Division I, but it's not like you're starting from scratch. If they had the funding and the willpower to do it, you could find a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
It's we're taking a half share. Washington's got a lot of money, but that doesn't mean you can just throw it around all over the place.
Yeah.
You got to spend it wisely.
I will be honest, the upper campus is going to be a little tight on that for probably the next few years, just to be safe. And I think that's part of the reason why Gannon left was he was upset because the upper campus was like, no, we gotta watch how we spend, and it's going to be a little thrifty for a few years, but they'll be fine in the long run. It's just more or less take care of the short term. The long run will play out. Plus, UW is trying to raise money right now for a new women's softball facility, like an actual stadium. So,
part of the reason why we are having some financial concerns, money's a little bit tight, although, we can still pay for stuff. And I know that there's a lot of, macho blustering. Oh, our school's got more money than we know what to do with. Every school's got a budget. It's just about spending it smart. And part of the reason we are in an interesting budget position is thanks to our Coug and Beaver friends. We got some clarification this week about the settlement that was being signed. Washington State and Oregon State will withhold $50 million in distributions, $5 million per school, and another $1.5 million later payment, a future payment, I believe they called it. And I got to say, I'm actually surprised because it's not an exit fee. We never had our contract expired as a conference. That's not what we're paying. But basically, to get our way out, it's $6.5 million per school. And I'm not going to lie, Becky, I thought it would be a lot more.
I thought it was going to be more, but I mean, this satisfies both parties. I know Wazoo and Oregon State fans thought they were going to get the bank. By the way, these aren't going, it's not going to the schools. This is going toward the Pac-12. So unless they dissolve the conference, they don't get any of this money. The conference gets it, so they can continue doing their thing. But no,
they'll still be able to distribute it to themselves in some fashion.
Yeah, they'll be able to distribute it and do what they need to do for the next 2 years at the very least. After that, they have to make a decision. So I don't think they're going to be distributing much to each other, simply because they have to deal with, the after effects of what's going to occur in 2027 or 2026. But I thought it was going to be a lot more. I was a little happy about it. I mean, there's a lot of upset Beaver and Cougar fans out there. I'm sorry. You have every right to be upset if you guys like. You didn't get fleeced or anything like that. But it is what it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, Joaquin Morales says, I believe that's to cover their share of the Comcast overpayment. I didn't read anything explicitly that breakdown was for Comcast. I do know as when we were having the legal proceedings, that burden for the Comcast overpayment was split equally amongst the 12.
It's already been paid. So
Yep.
the Comcast stuff is Comcast just isn't paying any money this year until it's paid. So like they're just withholding it, and that's what was agreed upon. So the schools technically aren't getting any of that money. None of them are. None of the 12. And that includes Oregon State and Washington State. So, but that's already been taken care of. And a few schools like just wrote checks. So
the other portion of this that we got clarification earlier on in the week, Oregon State and Washington State get 3.6 for 26, 27, and 28, up from the original figure of 350K. That's roughly double the G5 payout, and it makes a lot more sense to me. I almost had, just because the numbers are close, I almost had half of mine that someone was trying to get the insider scoop and they misread 3.6 or 3.5 million as 350K. But there was no reason they were getting a lower payout than the G5. I understand it's not in line with what the other conferences are getting. Big Ten and SEC are getting 20 million a team, but at 3.6 is at least a starting point for them.
Yeah, no, this was just this was Schultz holding them hostage. That's really what it was. Like they were going to get 350K because that's actually what UConn gets as an independent.
I see.
They treated them as independents, and then what essentially the president of the CFP said was they're not Notre Dame, but they're not UConn. They are a little bit better than the G5 overall, so they're going to give it to them until 2028. Obviously, I think that they don't get that though if they end up in a conference. So I think they'll end up getting the conference payout. So
yeah, and it just kind of shows, I mean, yes, they're going to have money. They're getting paid by the leaving members, but you're starting to really being able to see on paper what the deficit from their schools leaving to them is. And I don't think it's tenable in the future. They really need to sort out what it's going to look like for them, because as much as they want to say, oh, we're not going to join a G5, we're not going to become the Mountain West. I know they're holding out for an ACC spot. Their options are really, really becoming limited. Yeah,
they're running out of time. And I mean, I've said this before to people, they're losing essentially $35 million each year. Because we don't even know, I'll be honest, nobody even knows if the Pac-12 network is going to be a thing on like August 2nd. You know what I mean? Like, we have no idea. They have no media deal. They have, there's no future essentially with the Pac-12 network. So it's just kind of, it's a scary thing. I know my friends who are Wazoo fans and Oregon State fans, it's a little scary on their side. But yeah, $35 million essentially over 2 years. Could they survive it? Sure. But it's not sugarcoated. We're not talking about two schools that raise money like hand over fist. It's hard for them to raise, any kind of money. So we'll see how it goes. But I think, like I said, getting these payouts and things like that they can do might be the best thing for them right now. And it'll probably patch it short term because they'll be able to distribute that money as needed. So.
Yeah. And as I don't know to say that JEH or JF58, don't forget the NCAA men's basketball tourney units. I do know that obviously the Pac-12 did fairly well. At one point they were 6-0 and the women were 3-0. They were undefeated in their respective tournaments. I know a few Pac teams at school, including Oregon. Sad face for the Ducks. Washington never even made the tournament, so I don't have a lot of smack talking leg to stand on there.
I think
Oregon State and Washington State collect all of those units.
Yeah, but I think the settlement actually kind of changes that because it's like all the distributions and which are the units. That's part of the distributions and stuff. So they get it. It'll add in, and they'll get a little bit more coin out of it once we know where it is. But yeah, as long as Arizona keeps going, they'll get more money. So,
we're speaking of WCC and teams making the tournament. This is a collection of all the teams from the west side of the mountains that made the tournament. And, you got your typical Gonzagas, Arizonas, but you see, like Montana State, Nevada, GCU, Utah State, and, the Mountain West and WCC have teams capable of making the tournament. It's not like it's impossible for Washington State and Oregon State. Washington State made the tournament this year. It's very possible, even with the WCC schedule, that they can make it again next year.
Oh yeah, no, like Washington State and Oregon State and the WCC can easily do it. It's been a 2-bid conference for the most part. I think a lot of people thought San Francisco would get in, but they just kind of fizzled down the stretch. Had they beaten St. Mary's or Gonzaga, might have give a little bit of an edge to get in. But if they can beat St. Mary's and Gonzaga, they'll be fine. They'll be able to get in without a problem. And the Mountain West this year, I think it's the most they've ever had in the tournament, which is they'd never had more than I think 4 or 5. Now they're at 6, which is wild.
Mm-hmm.
And they still have a team alive in San Diego State. So it's a great time to do it. Yeah, like anybody. Oh, by the way, Long Beach. Can we just talk about Long Beach State for 1 second?
Go for it. Have at it.
Their coach was fired the Monday before their conference tournament. They won their conference tournament, and he did all that without getting paid this week.
I'm sure he'll get something
without being paid. That's wild. I've never seen a team do that. Washington dismisses Hopkins. It's okay, we'll go out and immediately beat Wazoo. Again, I can't complete it because they lost immediately after that.
Yeah, this era of coaches doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on this. I know Scott Schrader's our Husker friend. Dannon's family supposedly didn't want to live in Washington because they're Midwest people. And I don't know his buyout off the top of head. I was going to throw it up here for you, his Nebraska contract. And as someone mentioned, regardless of any personal issues he had with Washington and the campus and not being a cultural fit, Nebraska just made him the 3rd highest paid athletic director in the country. And that's insane to me. Washington, even if he was given the opportunity to make that much at Washington, you're not going to give a guy who's 5 months on the job and couldn't retain your head coach and make him the 3rd highest paid AD at UW.
Yeah.
So no matter how this shook out, he was always going to Nebraska, even if he wanted to stay at UW, because they're not paying that. So
they wouldn't have given him anything like that. He was here 5 months. He's here 5 months. Right? I wouldn't give him a raise. I'd be go. We got to be a little honest here. He wasn't going to get a raise after 5 months, right?
Yeah. It'll sound
insane.
like sour grapes from Husky fans, but I don't want someone as my AD who doesn't want to be here. I don't think any school would really want that. It creates a pretty negative work environment. If he sees Nebraska as a better fit, good luck to him. I just know that if it doesn't work out with him at Nebraska, if he has to get rid of Matt Rule and brings in a different guy or so on, whatever shakes out, that's an expensive buyout for anyone. So they're really betting that he's their dude.
Yeah. I mean, there were obviously the cultural fits. It was talked about on the radio. We can give a little bit of background on it. He didn't tell people all the time when he was doing things. So he just did stuff. So support personnel didn't know he was doing things were done until they happened. So it caught people off guard. He apparently tried to get 2 radio personnel kicked out of the press conference for Jed Fish.
Yeah.
Because he didn't like what they were saying. He didn't get he really made a booster with a ton of money. I'm talking one of the billionaire boosters. He really made that dude angry. He had that dude mad. And there were talks he was upset that he couldn't get any money and Upper Campus wasn't helping and all that. And it's yeah, like I said, Washington's going to be a little frugal for a hot minute. But it's his job to go out and raise money with the boosters. His buyout was I think $1.5 million. It wasn't very big. He was still making over $1 million at UW, but
for an AD, that's decent money. But a guy coming from Tulane.
Yeah, they gave him a raise. He made more here than he did at Tulane. Jamie Thornton in the house.
Hello to our friend Jamie Thornton. Thank you for stopping in. Razorback, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, Razorback.
All righty.
But yeah, I'm just like, there's a lot of things. If people, Pickles, you and I both live out here, we can say it. There is a definite cultural shift here from the Midwest.
Yes.
There was a
Very much so.
There was a very specific thing that is extremely important to the people here in Washington State, at both schools, and he was not a big fan of it, apparently. So
no,
it was going to be a problem in the long run anyway. But hey, he's happy now. His family's happier.
Yeah,
and
he's happy. Good,
he's
happy. Good for him.
I'm just like, Nebraska still hasn't hired his boss, so I just want to put that out there. Like, he may not like his new boss. Like, I don't see. That's the thing with, like, like,
yeah,
Sprinkle getting hired here. He doesn't have a boss yet, but his dad, like we said, his dad is, an alumni. Yeah. So
I don't think I've ever seen this level of turnover at any spot.
No.
So this last one, Becky, I made a comment earlier because I've seen this article come up that, it's the, NC tournament will be expanded, 72 teams, and it just keeps expanding and expanding. And I saw so many people,
for this.
I saw so many people disagree with my opinion because a lot of them are saying, 64 was perfect, 68's fine. Why are we going to 72? Some people like 72. I was very adamant. I said it should be 32 teams. Will they ever do that? No, they'll never shrink it. But no team 9 seed or lower has ever won. So if you had a 32 team NCAA tournament for all of history, you would in theory still have the same champion because I think Villanova, it was the only 8 seed that ever won, and only 3 8 seeds have ever made it to the championship game. So that's a practical reason, but this is about money, right? I had to convince Big 12 fans because I told you, if you make the NCAA tournament smaller, if you make March Madness smaller, your regular season means more and your conference tournament means more. And that's what the Big 12 should want. That is what Yormark should be pushing for every single day, is a smaller tournament, because he's trying to be the basketball kingpin. And the best way to make money isn't just trying to get more tournament units. Make your conference tournament the premier basketball event leading into March. If he adds a Gonzaga or a Syracuse or a Duke or UConn, if he can collect all of those basketball brands, make the Big 12 must-see regular season basketball. And a lot of Big 12 fans thought I was an idiot and that was my worst take ever and it was horrible. So I don't know.
I was going to say, I think Big 12 Twitter canceled you today.
They did.
Normally I'd agree, but 32 teams. This isn't like football where there's only 130 teams, right? This is NCAA basketball. There's like 400 teams. So getting a quarter of them in, like I've seen we should go to 96, we should go to 72, we should do 80, whatever. I'm fine with the number that it's at. I think it's great. I think I'm on the belief that no conference champion should ever be seeded lower than an 8 or a 9. I don't think the 16 seeds. I think 16 seeds should be the last 4 in, or last 6, since there is a play-in game. Also, that would create great drama. Like, think about this. Like, at large, Kansas is a 16 seed playing like a number 1 Purdue or number 1 Houston or something.
Yep.
How they couldn't play Houston, but like a number 1 seed, Kansas is a 16. That would be must see TV. People would tune in. It would actually create I think create more of the what's the word I'm looking for here? Like that would create more parity than anything else, because like you said, the 8 seed or higher or lower or whatever has ever won the tournament. Like,
yep, an 8 seed is the lowest seed to ever win the tournament, and they've only made the championship 3 times.
Yeah, was that like NC State? I want to say it was NC State.
It was like Villanova, North Carolina, NC State, and somebody. There was one other one, but it's been quite a while.
It's been like 40 years. Yeah, no, and you look at it this year. NC State's an 11 seed. That's the lowest seeded team left. Next up is Clemson a 6 seed, and then after that you have Gonzaga and San Diego State are 5 seeds. So no, I'm like, it's no, I'm with you. I just thought it was funny how you got immediately roasted.
Yes, I did.
If you guys want to see it, that comment section's really fun to watch. Just get the popcorn and
I tried to be as polite as I could. Yeah, I tried to be as polite as I could because it was very difficult, in particular with a Kansas State fan who I'm sure is a fine person in real life, but was very, very spicy in the replies. And I was trying to tell, this is a Big Ten fan trying to rig the tournament just like the CFP and blah, blah. I'm like, no, this is me saying I think the Big 12 makes more money with a 32-team tournament. And the other thing I think is ironic is the CFP goes to 4 teams and then 12 and then 14, and everyone waves their hands in the air about, oh my God, it's ruining the regular season. But we have a billion-team March Madness, and the regular season is irrelevant, but people are fine with it, I guess. Because college football, you're a fan. It seems like you're a fan of your team, so you only watch your team in college basketball, and then you watch the tournament, right? Mm-hmm. Brett Yormark should be pushing to make his tournament and his regular season just as important. And I think a reduced, March Madness does that. He can just collect all of the good basketball brands like freaking Thanos with the rings and, Gonzaga and UConn, etc. That to me, that's how he makes good on his promise to try and close the gap to the Big Ten and the SEC.
I mean, like, if he were to do that, like, I'll just say it. Let's hypothetically do this. If he were to grab the ACC schools, the biggest thing that the best thing for the Big 12 would be Duke and Kansas flexing their muscles consistently as blue bloods. They'd have to do it. Like, all the blue bloods are essentially in the SEC and the Big Ten now, minus, the ACC schools in Kansas. Kansas, like, serious thing. I know, like, Big 12 fans like, we're the best basketball conference and this and that, but it's like, go back and how many teams other than Kansas in the Big 12 have won a national title? Like, in the last 40 years.
Baylor.
Just Baylor. That's it.
Yeah.
The ACC can, like, you can rattle off schools. NC State, North Carolina, Duke, Virginia. I mean, even like the Big East you can start doing it because technically Syracuse won theirs when they were in the Big East. So
Illini said saying Big East should try and get Gonzaga. I believe that's been rumored for years.
Yeah, when the Big East collapsed in football, I think there was the rumor that they would go, but I think the Big East determined that the travel would be too much because it is Spokane. Yeah, and getting there isn't exactly like the easiest thing.
Yeah, Baylor 21 from our friend Scott Schrader. Scott, do you know, other than Kansas and Baylor, are there any other Big 12 teams that have won? Because I don't believe there are.
No, out of the new Big 12, Arizona coming in will be the other one, but technically they haven't won it in the conference.
Right.
But Arizona's the other one. So
yeah, and as you see, I threw up this. If you don't follow Reddit CFB, it's a very, very funny page. But teams that decline the NIT and is talking about Pac-12. I actually, in my scenario where you have a 32-team tournament, the NIT could actually be worth something. And I understand that it goes full circle. We're saying, oh, well, why do we play in the NIT? We'll just make an expanded March Madness tournament. I get it. I understand why the networks want it. But for the Big 12, you're literally saying, I want a bigger March Madness tournament, and I'm going to leave the fate of how many of our teams get selected up to a committee. You already say you hate that in football, but you're like cool with it for basketball. I don't get it. Like, control your own fate.
I mean, like, so the decline NIT invitation, like, we can go through it. Okay. USC, yeah, I get it. They're USC. UCLA they're UCLA. Like Washington, new coach. Like they fired their coach. You have, who else is on there? Stanford fired their coach. Cal, they're just coming off the new thing. They're just like, no, not interested. Indiana's Indiana. I could see it. Maryland's, they've won a national title in the last 20 years. They're, like you go through the list and it's just like, like why do we do this? We can practice and all that stuff. So it's like, okay.
Yeah. Scott K started Florida, originally said Oklahoma and said they lost to Kansas. Yes, they did. And for the purpose of our discussion, they're an SEC team. Lorenzo Hayes, you are correct. We did miss that one. Cincinnati, although not as a member of the Big 12.
In the last 40 years?
Was it the 80s? I'm totally out to left
field.
field.
I'd have to look. I'm just like, Oregon has a national title, but we're not bringing it up.
1939, yes.
Yeah, the very first NCAA tournament after they basically made the NIT the secondary one. But yeah, I mean, technically. Also, I think technically Oregon State has more Elite Eights, I believe, than Arizona, which is really funny. I think I saw
Arizona has been very, very good since I'd say 2000 or maybe a little earlier. But
kind of like 82, like whenever Lute Olson got there is when they got really good.
Okay, Cincinnati, 1961 and 1962. I have discovered via Wikipedia.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Like I said, it's not in the last 40 years or anything because UCLA has only won once in the last 40 years. Themselves.
You can call it recency bias, but UCLA, even though they haven't won in a very long time, like for an entire era, they were the dominant team in college basketball.
7 straight national titles. I don't care what era that is. That would be virtually impossible. Like, and it's probably the greatest feat. That's Yeah,
Maryland won it in the ACC. Yeah, Illini Ted, as our friends Immaculate and Moen have pointed out, once you join the Big Ten, they just absorb all of your championships and claim them for all of time. And Tony Lashin can attest, it makes it very awkward for the 1960 national championship because Minnesota and Washington both claim they won that championship. So I guess you'll get accounted twice.
Yep, it counts as 2.
Yeah, but I don't know why that was such a hot take. I didn't mean to upset so many people. It wasn't that I was saying the tournament will go to 32.
It's a hot take because they're very proud of their basketball out there. I mean,
Indeed.
It's
they
literally
should be
the one thing that they have right now because they're getting super. Yeah. I mean, like we all know they're a little frustrated by what happened with the CFP, especially in the money. I haven't figured out how or why they're lower than the ACC, but they're a little frustrated by it. And they have done what the ACC did 10 years ago, which is let's create a great basketball conference.
Tony, we've talked about this before. The AP never lies, but before 1974, the AP awarded the championship before the bowl game was played. Minnesota lost that Rose Bowl to the Huskies. You know better.
Yeah. Also, the BCS national title was split one year. So the AP did not give it to Auburn, or not Auburn, but LSU. They gave it to USC. So
was that 2003 LSU?
Yeah, it's 2003. I got a very good discussion with Duck fans trying to explain to them how national titles work, even in the BCS era.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, once you get to the BCS era, I don't care what the AP national champion is or the. You
had to care what the coaches was because that was the one that actually awarded the national title. So when you got you won the BCS national title game, but in order to be the national champion, you had to be number 1 in the poll.
Yeah, there was a lot of weird stipulations at the start of the BCS, and I don't think too many people contested. I mean, we all got pretty upset when they started putting 2 SEC teams in, but especially. I mean, obviously we're going to 12 teams, but in the 4-team era, I think it's pretty darn hard to argue that the winner of the 4-team college football playoff is not the deserving national champion.
No, there's no way to not say it. I mean, this year would be the only one where you kind of like had a little asterisk because Florida State was left out. But at the same time, you're like, okay, we got 3 great games in the end. Yeah, the national title ended up being a blowout in the end, but it was this, it was a 1 touchdown game for, 2.5 quarters. Like you can't, it's a 1-score game.
Yeah,
you can't beat it.
Scott saying he'd rather be good in football starting our run this year. I'm assuming you're a fan of a Big 12 team and that you'd rather be good in football. It's possible. I mean, you're gonna have chance to make the college football playoff, and I think that's really where the Big 12 can kind of put themselves in a good place. Is you might have less teams make the CFP a lot of years. You have to win. You have to win some games. It was the knock against the Pac-12 forever. We would make New Year's 6 games. Washington lost 3 New Year's 6 games in a row despite having 10-win seasons, and it completely changes the narrative. Oh, the Pac-12's bad. They're all garbage. And you made a CFP and lost to Alabama, but then you lose to Ohio State and Penn State in back-to-back years, and people forget that you had good seasons. They just kind of see the final result. So
yeah.
You have to, when the most eyeballs are on you, you have to make it count.
Yeah, you have people, like you said, like that Penn State squad had Saquon Barkley and Tracy.
It was a very good Penn State team.
It was a very good Penn State squad. Like they were legit, and Washington just couldn't hang.
Yeah, Jamie Thornton said about Arkansas's national title was a coach's title. Alabama was given the AP before the bowl game. Bama got blown out by and Arkansas beat Nebraska. Yeah, I've looked into the history of championships. 1974 was the first time that both the coaches and AP were awarded after the bowl games. So before that, you get a lot of those like there's 6 or 7 different groups or whatever that vote on the national champion. You get a lot of weird national champions, and it's the reason why Washington still claims that 1960, because they were awarded by a couple of other people.
Yeah, technically we could also claim one from 84. We don't.
Bomber likes to remind us about that one.
There's multiple from like the 20s and 30s that we could claim. We don't.
Yep.
I mean, Alabama claims one where they won 5 games. So
yeah, Big Lubbock UCF won in 2017. They were awarded by one of those selection groups. I forget which one. They were awarded the national championship.
I think it was the Harris poll. I want to say it was the Harris. Somebody awarded them the national title.
Yeah, Washington Expedition Greg. Huskies split title in '91 with Georgia Tech.
Not
that
Georgia
is
Tech.
Incorrect.
Miami.
Georgia Tech and Colorado split in 1990.
Yeah.
So the year before, but yes, that era they split with Miami.
And then I don't think we had another split national title, I want to say, until Nebraska and Michigan in 97?
Yeah.
And then
Washington claims the
03.
Yeah, Washington claims 2 championships. 1960 because they beat number 1 ranked Minnesota in the Rose Bowl. Like I said, Minnesota was awarded by the AP before the game, and then 1991. So Washington officially claims 2 championships.
Yeah, and like I said, could claim 4 or 5 more. Just don't. There's no point.
Michigan still tries to claim in 97. That's the thing. You're going to get fan bases that argue. I'm glad that we're in the undisputed championship. I'm not going to claim Washington got half of the championship with Michigan this last year. You know what I mean? I'm glad that we've put all that to bed and that we can just kind of have a undisputed champion going forward.
I'm even if something came out where Michigan was basically we're stripped of it, let's say, because the NCAA is still technically investigating all that. Let's say they're stripped of it. Washington can't claim the national title. We weren't number 1 in a poll. Still can't claim it. Essentially, it's as if the game never occurred. So.
Yep. All right. Well, we always have fun talking championships here, but Becky, I'm going to kick it to you for last call and last call here in our chat. If you got anything you'd like us to say, we try and remember comments, but any super chats will 100% be read as long as they don't violate YouTube terms of service. Right. You can have us trash talk our own teams or your rivals. Just go ahead and throw a super chat down there.
Let's see your super chats. Let's see your super chats about your rivals. Any trash talk that you want to say, we'll read it. It's forever on the interwebs, on the YouTubes, and the Twitters, or X, whatever it's called. Final thoughts, though. It's going to be it's going to be a weird off season. We got a lot of things coming up. We're planning some fun stuff for you guys. Definitely tune back in on Mondays.
I'll tease that one as we head out.
Yeah. But yeah, we've got fall or spring football starting. That has kicked off for a couple of the school, for I think 3 out of the 4. I think the only one left is UCLA. I think they were starting a little late just because they got a late jump on the coaching staff and all that. I do know the University of Washington has really started. Like, they're really getting going. They have a crazy coaches clinic. I don't know if you saw that. They have a coaches clinic for high school coaches this summer.
Yep.
And it is, I mean, they got it loaded. It's got like Bill Belichick coming in to talk to them. You've got Mike McDonald, the head coach of the Seahawks, coming in. John Schneider, the general manager of the Seahawks. Can't remember his name, but he's an author. Like, it's a crazy good coaches clinic. So if you guys know anybody who's a coach of a high school football team and wants to get in on that, you should go check out the page, see if they can register. And if they can get to Seattle to do that, it would be a great time because, again, there's a lot of great coaching folks.
Yeah, that's perhaps the positive side of all of this is that, you know, if coaches are so inclined, they can actually make an impact in their community and help out. I know that I'm from a town called Sumner in Washington. I know that our coach posted on his personal Twitter page that he will be going to that coach's clinic. It's pretty darn exciting here. And I guess I'll leave it here with our friend Tony, one for the road. In 1936, the Gophers boarded a 4-day train trip to Seattle. Hotel near Missoula, Montana burned down overnight on the way there. So kids today shouldn't complain about travel. I agree, Tony.
I agree.
You don't know how good you have it until you're take a 4-day train trip and your hotel burns down.
I mean, we could go through history, and, you know, there are the stories of obviously the segregation and obviously players not being allowed to stay in certain hotels with their teammates and even riding on certain buses with their teammates and in certain train cars with their teammates. Most of the time they didn't even travel by plane, I don't think, until the 70s. I don't think they travel by plane at all very often.
Yeah.
I do know there's a good story of like the University of Washington on a train ride firing their coach back to Seattle from like Los Angeles. So that's a pretty fun story. That's pretty funny. Like, fired on the train. You can't get off.
Yeah, indeed. It's the Lane Kiffin left on the tarmac of its day, I think.
Yeah.
But last thing here as we wrap up, everyone, I really appreciate all of our members and just everyone being here in chat. We had a little bit of a rocky start to the show as we're making it work as best we can.
Hold on. We got to get this in for Wild Ute.
Is this one here from Shonsky?
Yeah, we got to say it from Shonsky.
Yeah, our good friend Will Dute needs to put his money where his mouth is because Utah will lose. The Holy War is going to – I think the Big 12 is not quite prepared for the spiciness of the Holy War.
It gets spicy, man. That thing is raucous. It's the nicest, meanest rivalry you'll ever see in your life, but it's fun.
Weirdly, Pac-12 fans, like BYU was like an honorary Pac-12 team for decades because they played all of our teams all the time. Like, we played at BYU, I think a home and home just a few years ago. I understand why they weren't added to the Pac-12, but in my mind, we should have taken them over Colorado, and maybe we'd still be around today. But a story for another day. My tease to you in the chat is I'm not certain exactly which show it will be, but in honor of Easter, Becky and I have been surmising the 10 Commandments of college football. And they're going to be a little bit of humorous take on some things that some rules we believe that college football should live by. And just an example here for you. Thou shalt not covet thy rivals 4- and 5-star recruits, while also saying they are trash on message boards. So that is the first commandment of college football. You have to covet your rivals 4- and 5 stars, but claiming they're trash on message boards. So hopefully that'll be a fun thing we can throw out there in the week to come. And from everyone here, I appreciate you sticking with us through our technical difficulties.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to be on my phone, guys.
Yep. Thank you for staying with us on the Big West Mafia Show, part of the College Football Mafia Network. We hope to see you next week, Monday, 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 Eastern, hopefully not 5:15 again, but I appreciate everyone being here. Thank you and have a good night.